Hi, and welcome back to our channel. I'm Jen, and we teach on this channel how to take back control of your finances, how to get yourself out of debt, doing nothing but changing where you put your money. I want to talk to you guys today about giving yourself a meaningful raise. Giving yourself a meaningful raise, taking back control, and why Americans are finding themselves in so much debt. What situation, what's going on economically that causes us to be in the situation we're in? It may not be necessarily what you guys are doing, but it might be more environmental than you ever really imagined. And then I'm going to tie it all together with a student scenario that makes a lot of sense out of this. And I hope you'll see things in a different way once you see this scenario as well. So, again, I'm Jen. My husband Dan is another part of my team here, and we go over velocity banking. We teach you velocity banking. We teach you how to take back control. All right. So, when we talk about our finances, we look at the situation that we find ourselves in where we're strapped. And we can't figure out why we are so payment poor. Okay. Dan and I came from the position of being payment poor. We are business owners, and prior to myself being a business owner, I worked for a bank, and I worked as a banker, and I worked as a branch manager. So I understand the banking system very well, and I understand the banking products that I talk about on this channel very well, which are lines of credit. Always a line, never a loan, and you're going to find out in just a few minutes why that's important. When we talk about velocity banking, we use things called lines of credit. A line of credit is a very different product than a loan. A loan is on an amortized schedule, and it is that amortized schedule that robs you of your wealth, because what happens is when you're on an amortized schedule, such as a mortgage, okay, your mortgage that you have, and most people have, I should say, at this point, that amortized schedule is front end loaded with interest. So that means you're paying a boatload of interest up front. Okay, in the first 7 years, you're paying a lot of interest. And why do they load it up front like that? Well, because the banks know Americans, and they understand their habits, and they know that people either move or refinance their home within those first 7 years. And so if they can get more interest from you up front, they're going to do that. And then they're going to come knocking on your door, and they're going to offer to refinance that loan for you and maybe give you a little bit of cash out in the process. And they're going to then reset that clock and reset that interest that they're going to get from you all over again. Okay. And so we teach you guys how to stop doing that, how to stop refinancing to put money in your pocket. I know this very well because I used to do the same thing. Dan and I have refinanced our home before. We are guilty, and we didn't realize exactly what we were doing at the time. And it wasn't until years later that it all started to make a whole lot of sense. All right. But let's talk about today. Let's talk about how to give yourself a meaningful raise. You work for the same company. Maybe you've been working for that company for many years, and you know what kind of raise you get, right? You know what they are. They're a joke, aren't they? I know, because I not only got raises, but I gave raises when I worked for corporate America. So I know what they're like. And it's laughable, especially when you look at, inflation and what things cost, right? So that's laughable. And part of the reason why Americans are finding themselves in debt is because of the environment that we're in, right? The environment that we're in and the inflation that we're in is, you know, causing our pockets to empty before they were ever full. All right. Our pockets were never even full before they were being emptied. And then every single year we are losing out because things are costing more. Okay. And yet we're not getting anything meaningful. We're not getting a meaningful raise in the meantime. Okay. So what I'm going to teach you with this strategy, okay, the pay down strategy, which is a three-step system that gets you out of debt. I'm going to teach you how to give yourself a raise by not changing your job and not actually getting more money from your employer. So how on earth are we going to do that? Let's watch and let's get into it. Okay, so giving yourself a meaningful raise by doing a simple trick. It's one trick, right? So the raise you've gotten in the past 4 years or more, right, is a joke. So I can tell you that when I was a banker, and actually when I was a branch manager, well, as a banker, I know what raises I got. I got maybe anywhere between a 1.5 and a 2% raise, okay? And I know that at the time when I was getting raises from the bank, you know, well, it wasn't until I became a branch manager that I understood what those raises, what we were allowed to give, okay? And none of them were higher than 3%. And actually, I didn't know anybody that even got a 3% raise, all right? So it's kind of a joke when year over year over year, right? You go and you're waiting for that raise, and you're hoping upon hope that you're going to get a decent raise this time. And yeah, you get a raise, but it's not much, right? And it certainly doesn't keep up with all the expenses out there. So we were giving out 1.5 to, supposedly 3% raises, although I didn't see any of those, okay? So these raises don't help keep up with your grocery bill now, does it? It certainly doesn't, okay? And so when we know, and in looking up statistics, because I've been kind of digging into this, trying to figure out what's been going on with finances for a while now. And we know that from 2020 to 2024, the grocery bills are up 21.7%. That's pretty significant, okay? And I would argue that that's even more than that, actually, because I think I commented the other day on a video that if anybody's gone to purchase eggs, and I know it's all over the news, right? And I'm using this as an example because it is all over the news, and you guys understand that, what the price of eggs are. A couple years ago, they were $2.50 to $3. We're looking at $9 to $11 for cartons of eggs right now, which is absolutely ridiculous. That is well over 21.7%. Okay, we know that is. It's double in lots of cases, all right? But from 2020 to 2024, they're saying that the groceries are up 21.7%. Okay, we'll take that number for now, right? So we also know that the raise that we've been given doesn't even keep up with the insurance, okay, medical, life, home, etc., right? The insurance, the cost of insurance that keeps going up as well. And we know that health insurance rose in 2023 to 2024. It rose 7.2%, okay? So again, that 7.2% is certainly more than the 1.5 to 3% raise that you've been given, right? So again, we're in even more over our head at this point, right? So over our head, everything keeps going up, and then we wonder why we're broke. And then we wonder why there's, Americans and filing for bankruptcy, and that bankruptcy is on the rise. We wonder why, right? Actually, we don't. So we know that the self-employed also, and this is actually the one of the examples that I'm showing today. This couple here, they are self-employed, and their health insurance rose from $1,200 for a family of 4 to $1,800 year over year, okay? So that means that in 1 year, they are paying $600 extra for health insurance. That is a killer, all right? And I know that this is true because Dan and I also experienced this when we were out there shopping for insurance, that our insurance it was almost this exact price too. It was $1,289 and it went up to $1,857, okay? So it was a ridiculous jump in just healthcare alone. So business owners, small business owners, we really get the short end of the stick when it comes to health insurance because it's all the big corporations that these big insurance companies want to go after, right? They want all of those big corporations contracts. So they don't really care about us down here, okay? And so we always end up with, the most expensive insurance. And so this is a killer. And that is what caused these guys to end up, to begin their snowball, okay, into being into some big trouble, all right? So again, it's no wonder why Americans are in debt, right? When you look at the expenses out there and how things cost money, all right? And maybe you are out there and you know your habits, and maybe you spend too much on your credit cards. Maybe you're a woman who likes to shop or a man who likes to shop. Maybe you shop too much. Maybe it's retail therapy for you. Maybe all the stresses in life, right, are what cause you to want to go and buy things. And let's be honest, you guys, things are fun, okay? You have to live and you want to live, and it's okay to have some things, right? That's okay. And again, we don't teach frugality here. I'm not going to tell you not to go out and do what you're doing on a daily basis. I'm not going to tell you to do anything different than what you're doing today, because I know you don't necessarily have to when you employ and deploy velocity banking, okay? Our 3-step system is the pay down way. It is 1, to organize your debts. 2 is to identify your debt destroyer, your debt weapon, and to identify your plan. And 3 is going to be implementing that plan and working that plan down to fruition, okay? So when we talk about it's no wonder that Americans are debt, what is it? What can we do about it? What can we do? Well, okay, so maybe you can go out and get another job, right? You could do that. You could go out and get another job, and you could spend more time away from your family, and you can spend more time grinding away at another job you don't love. You could do that, right? But who wants to? So that's something you could do. Maybe you could go out there, and you start a little side hustle. So you'll have your job plus, your little side hustle out there. Or maybe pick up, maybe you make dog treats on the side, right? Maybe you do something like that and then you sell them on Amazon. I don't know. So maybe you do that, right? You could go without health insurance, right? Could go without health insurance. Maybe you just drop your health insurance and you don't pay for that anymore. You could do that. And then somebody gets in sick and you're in a world of hurt. But you know what? You've saved over time, and you're also gambling at that point, right? So maybe if something will happen, maybe it won't. You don't know. I don't recommend you do that, but you could. That's something you could do. It would certainly save $600 now, wouldn't it? Right? Okay. Or we could stop buying food. Yeah, we could stop buying food. Let's just not buy food. We don't have to worry about that anymore, right? We'll get a little leaner. We'll not buy any more food. That's one way we could solve it. Sure, we could do that. Okay. You could stop buying your $3 coffee every day on your way to work. That is something you could do, right? You could do that. Sure. Let's take a look at that $3 coffee. Why not? Okay. Again, I don't teach frugality, but let's just use it as an example. All right. So we take our $3 coffee, we multiply it by 5 working days in that week, and that ends up being $15 a week, right? Okay. So we take that $15, we're going to multiply that baby by 4 because we work for 4 weeks out of a month, right? Okay, so now it's $60. That could be a credit card minimum payment. So yeah, I guess you could stop drinking coffee and you could make that credit card minimum payment with that, right? So you could do that. Or perhaps we could do one other thing. Or you could change where you put your money and still pay for the same things and do the same things that you're currently doing. Well, how in the world are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do it through Velocity Banking. Of course we are. We are going to stop being payment poor in 2025. We're going to thrive instead. We are going to stop giving the banks more money than they need. We're going to put more money back in our pocket, and we're going to do it through Velocity Banking. So here's something interesting. If you look at your grocery bill, right? So let's look at our groceries. Let's say groceries are $200. And we know that, groceries have gone up 21.7%. So that means our groceries are now, instead of $200 a month, they're $243 a month, okay? And again, I would argue that it's even more than that, because I remember last year spending, for $250 worth of groceries last year cost well over $300 now. I know that because I'm the one that grocery shops, so I do know that. All right. So then let's say your health insurance, right? Your health insurance used to cost you $1,200 last year, but this year the premiums have gone up and you have to pay $600 more. So that $1,200 moves to $1,800. So now we are at $643 more that you're paying this year in those 2 areas alone in your life. Do you have that extra money? Do you have that anywhere? Because most of you guys are a little bit positive, right? You're either break even, a little bit positive, maybe you're even behind. And in this case, if these guys here have $230 positive, they already went negative, didn't they? Because these are more expensive, all right? And so that's how we're finding ourselves in debt, right? Because what are you going to do at that point? You're going to put it on your credit card. And if it's not the groceries that you're putting on the credit card or the health insurance, it's going to be something else. It's going to be, all of your gas. It's going to be other things to live that will end up being on that card. And now your cards are getting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper in debt, right? So you're getting deeper in debt. So now let's look at this too. Then you get that 3% salary raise though, right? You get your 3% salary raise if you're lucky. And that salary raise then, so you take $5,900, let's say that's what you make, and you multiply that by 0.03, that 3%, and then you end up with $177 a month more this year, okay? Okay, well that's gonna help, right? That's gonna help because we're $643 in extra expenses, but that's okay because now we're getting $177 a month instead for our new income. How much did that really help you? How much? Because now you're still negative $466, aren't you? So we got to figure something out, don't we, guys? We got to do something different. And I suggest what you do different is velocity banking. All right. So this example exactly is the students that we had the other day, where they are business owners. They happen to be business owners as well. And they did have this come up with their insurance, and it has caused a lot of strain on them. And actually, it was 2 years ago that their insurance went up this much. And so now they're snowballing, okay? Because if you multiply that $600 over 12 months, well, what is that? So if we take our 600, all right, so you take 600, you multiply that by 12, that's $7,200 that year extra that they're spending. Now you're going to multiply that by 2 because it's 2 years that they have paid that. And actually it raised even a little bit more. So now they're $14,400 behind where they have been before. But where is that going to be made up, right? Where does that get made up? And this is the problem that we're in, okay? And this is the problem that we're seeing. So they're going to do something different. They are going to learn and start doing velocity banking, all right? So making up the deficit, they're doing it through velocity banking like we teach on this channel, all right? Now, if their income is $5,900, and it is, it's approximately, I approximate here, right? Okay, so if it's $5,900 and their expenses are $5,670, okay? If their expenses are $5,670, cool beans, man, we're positive, right? We're positive $230, looks good, all right. But again, life happens to us, doesn't it? We got to keep that in mind. So their mortgage payment here is $1,064. Okay, mortgage payment, that's actually pretty decent. But they have some debt, okay? They have debt, and they need to take care of this debt because they're going in the wrong direction. So we have 2 car payments here, and the balances, and I'll go over the balances with you. We've got car 1 here at $18,175. It is at a payment monthly of $418. Their car number 2 is at $9,947 is the balance, and it is at $431. So $431 is the payment on that. A couple years into both of these cars, though. Okay, so that is why the interest rates here are kind of low because they're a couple years into the loans. Now, Bank of America, you guys, I forgot to write my interest rates. I apologize. I'll look those up in a second. Okay, so Bank of America is at $16,000 here. So $16,000 is Bank of America, and it is a monthly payment of $434. And then Capital One is at $11,610 with $329 as their payment. Synchrony Bank, $8,674, and that payment is $260 a month. So then they have a loan, okay? They have a loan for $26,152. And that is at $590 payback. So that's $590 a month for that loan, which means, not including their mortgage, they are $90,570 in debt, okay? They need to take care of this because they are losing their wealth, right? We know they're losing their wealth because on the flip side of that, look at what they're spending in interest. Letting these all term out, they're spending $32,202 in interest. Okay, so if we want to go and look at our interest rates really quick that I forgot about. So if you forgive me right here for 1 second. Okay, I'll just grab something you guys can see. Okay, so we're looking at this car payment is 5%. We've got car 2 here, and that is at 4%. Okay, and then Bank of America is at 20.49%. And then we have our Capital One card at 22%. So that one's at 22. And then Synchrony is at, oh Lord, this is at 29.99%. Not wanting this card at all at this point. And then their loan is at 6.75. Okay, so 6.75% is what the loan is at. So now, as far as the years are concerned on these and paying these back, none of the credit cards, are under 5 years. This loan here was a 6-year loan, okay? The car loans were 60 months, okay? And so they're a couple years into those from what I remember. All right, so they have a lot of debt, okay? Their living expenses are actually not too bad. So their living expenses aren't too bad, but they have some debt and they need to do something with it. So when we talked to them, we worked a couple different strategies for them, but the best option for them was going to be getting a home equity line of credit. And they did actually have a home equity available to them. They have, or I should say they have equity available to them. And they were able to get a line for $46,000, all right? And that line was at 9.7%, and it's an interest only. Okay, so they got it for interest only. So what we did is we started to piece and part this, because the $46,000 is not the total 90 that they need. Now, is it? Right? It's not. So they're going to have to take chunks and pay it down, pieces at a time. All right. So what we did, or what we suggest to them, is that they're going to take and pay. First off, they're going to pay what we've done here in our green check marks, okay? So when you are looking to run Velocity Banking and you're looking at what debts to pay off first, okay, we always get this question. And we're always going to take the biggest payments first, because that will come back to us as cash flow. Now remember, and those of you that don't know and are learning about us for the first time, when we run a Velocity Banking strategy, we take every piece of our income and we park it right on that line of credit. Oh my gosh, what are you going to do if you put it on that line of credit? How are you going to pay your bills, right? So that's the first thing everybody asks. Well, you're actually going to turn around and pay it right out of that line of credit. And it seems strange and it seems counterintuitive, but that's exactly how this works. And that's exactly how lines of credit work, okay? So you are going to park all of your income onto that line of credit, such as we did here, okay? So that means that your $5,900 comes into your checking account, okay? Comes into your checking account for about a minute. And then from that checking account, you then make a payment to your line of credit. And what does that do then? What that does is it drops your balance immediately, okay, by $5,900 down to $36,264. Now, why this is important and why this is different than your amortized loans, and this is why we kick loans to the curb, okay? Because lines of credit are all figured on an average daily balance, and it's simple interest. And the average daily balance is done from statement period to statement period. So as your income hits a line of credit and drops that balance immediately, that means your interest charges are going to come down quickly, okay? Which means you spend less over time. So when we run the strategy this way and put all of our income on that line of credit, the lines of credit also have another special feature, and that is that you can pull from them anytime you want to pay for any bill you have or any expense you have. You don't have to hold anything out of your checking account separately, because the lines of credit are actually paid out of your checking account, okay? So what happens is your checking account sits at zero because you've paid money and you've put it on that line of credit, okay? You've paid your bill. You put it on that line of credit, and then as expenses come into your account, okay, you pay for your haircut, you pay for your I don't know, maybe you go tanning. You pay for your tanning. If in Michigan, you might need it, right? Because I'm really pasty right now. So you pay for your tanning. You pay for all of your bills, right? Every bill that hits that checking account is going to be paid, and it's going to be drafted from that line of credit. So the bills hit your account, and then they're paid out of your account because the money pulls from that line of credit to cover them, okay? And so sometimes we have to do a manual transfer, meaning we transfer from that line of credit, deposit it into the checking account, and then we pay our bills that way. But in a lot of cases, it actually works as an overdraft protection and covers you and pays all the bills that hit your account. So it's a beautiful system, right? It works fantastically well, and it makes life very easy for you because now you're able to play our game, right? What's our game? Our game is Velocity Banking. And our game is the best game in town because we are kicking traditional banking to the curb at this point. So now we have this $36,264 balance, but okay, we have expenses that we have to pay out each month. And those expenses are now going to be calculated. Okay, but here's the thing. With Velocity Banking and the way this works through lines of credit, we took our biggest payments. Remember, we took Bank of America and we took our loan, and we rolled them into this line of credit, okay? So that means this $590 and this $434, those expenses we no longer have, okay? So those expenses are subtracted out of our total expenses. So that means we are spending $4,646, so $4,646 in expenses now, whereas before we were paying $5,670, right? So we are spending less now in these expenses because we've taken care of these debts. But we have to calculate our interest, okay? So we have to calculate our interest for that line of credit. So how do we do that, all right? And I'm going to show you step by step today, and I'm going to write it out because I know that this is confusing some people. And I actually had a wonderful lady I worked with the other day, and she's like, hold on, can you really just write it out for me? I need to see this interest to make sure I'm calculating it properly. 100% absolutely. Glad to do it for you. So remember, when we calculate the interest with Velocity Banking and we run our finances this way, we are taking an average between the high balance and the low balance for that month, okay? So what you then do is we are going to take our 42,000, okay, so 42,164, all right, and we're going to add the 36,264. Is that right? 64, 64, yes. So we're going to add those together, okay? All right, so I'm going to grab my handy dandy calculator because Dan's the math guy, I am not. So 42,164 plus 36,264 equals, okay, 78,4, what is that, 78,428? I can't read backwards. All right, so we're going to write that down. So it's 78,428, okay? So that is them added together, but then we have to divide this, right, by 2 to get our average. So we divide that by 2, and that is 39,214. So 39,214. Okay, sorry, my 3 is a little wonky there. All right, so this is my average now. All right, so now I have to figure out what I'm going to do and how I'm going to get that interest charge. So I have to then take this 39,214 and multiply it by my interest rate. But I can't multiply it by the rate as is. I have to turn it into a decimal. So I'm going to take 39,214 and I am then going to, I'm going to multiply it. Here, we'll just do it this way. We're going to multiply it by, that's 0.097. 0.097, okay? So that's turning it into a decimal. So then, once I do that, so I'm going to multiply this by 0.097. That gives me 3803, okay? So I'm then going to take this number, okay, so we'll write it down here. So it's 3803, and it's 0.7, but I round up, okay? And now we're going to take that, we're going to divide that by 12, okay? We divide it by 12 because this is giving me a year's worth of interest. All right. We don't want a year's worth of interest. We want 1 month because we know running our finances this way, we are going to continuously drop our balance, which is going to drop our interest rate. Okay. So when I divide it by 12, this is what I get. So it's going to be 317, we'll say. 316, 317. So looks like we didn't round on this one. So, okay, so 317. All right, so that is the interest charge that we have. And I wrote 316, but anyway, 316, 317, whatever. All right, so that is how you're going to calculate your interest every single month. If you want to know monthly what your interest is going to be and you want to run all of it down, then this is how you do it, okay? So 316 then becomes our interest. So that means that we have to add this all together. We're going to get $41,226 as that first month, okay? So that is what our balance comes back up to, all right? So you can see we started with 42,164. We dropped our balance, but we had to add back in our expenses. We had to add back in our interest, and that brought us back to 41,226. Well, so what's our check here? Are we going in the right direction or are we going in the wrong direction? I would say we're going in the right direction, right? Because 42,164 is more than 41,226, which is more than 42,81. So that means this strategy is working, okay? It's moving in the right direction. So we know that the next step, we're going to run this down, okay? So we will run this down and then we will have another step, because the next thing we're going to do is when we can, we are going to pull in our next debts, which I believe are the card one and car one and car two, okay? So we're going to pull these in. So if we do that, all right, we are able to do that after 24 months. And I'm going to move out of the way. So after 24 months, we're able to pull in these two debts here, okay? Now, when I calculated this, all right, I didn't actually, because remember, as this 24 months of running these down, okay, of these two debts here, all of our debts, though, are going to be lower, all right? I did not calculate that. So our end result is actually going to be even lower than what I'm showing you today because I didn't run it all down. I just did it as is, okay? So anyway, so we've got after 7 months, right? So, okay, 24 months, we're able to pull in these two debts, right? So we pull them in. And then after 7 months of running those two debts down and spending $4,080 in interest, okay, so I'm adding up the interest as we go. Remember, if we term things out, we're going to be spending $32,202 to bank traditionally. We're not banking traditionally, though, are we? We're going to do it the velocity way, which we are. So after 24 months, we've spent $5,376. Now we've moved on, and after 7 months of pulling in these two debts, we've spent $4,080 on top of that. So what are we at, guys? We're somewhere around $9,400, okay? So $9,400. All right, so what's our next step? Well, the next step is we then move on and we pull in everything with the blue check marks, right? So we're pulling in Capital One, and that's it. So we're only pulling in Capital One because at this point in time, that is all the room that we had was to pull in Capital One. Now remember, we are always going for that biggest payment. We want to release that payment back to us, all right? So this is gone and this is gone. And when I run my strategy, right, we know that these two payments are now coming out of our expenses. So our expenses are even less now because those are inside of our line of credit, okay? So now we've taken care of 4 debts, right? And so after 4 months, we've spent $1,222. Well, at that point, we are able to then pull in Synchrony, our last debt. All right, so when we do that, okay, so when we pull in Synchrony, we then finish out the rest of this loan, okay? We finish it out. And it's going to take 17 months, and we are going to spend $3,144 to do it, all right? So now, 24 months in, we've spent $5,376. We've added another 7 months on top of that, $4,080. We've added on another 4 months onto that, and now we've added $1,222. And then to finish it all up and button this up and get rid of it, get it done right, we've added another $31,444. Now, does that look like $32,202? And it's actually even less than the numbers I had there because I didn't run down. After 24 months, I didn't drop the payments. I just took them as is for you. All right. So what this means, when it's all said and done, here's what happens. It's taken 4 years to do all this. Okay. 4 years, and actually probably even less because again, those payments have decreased as we've gone on, right? And we have spent $13,822, okay? We gave ourselves a raise, essentially, a meaningful raise, right? Because we saved a boatload of money over time, all right? A boatload of money. So we've actually saved, the actual number is $18,380, okay? Running the numbers the way I did them. Obviously, they would be less, remember? So I'm going to take $18,380 over $32,202 every day of the week. Give yourself a meaningful raise, you guys. Learn velocity banking and stop paying for things. Stop paying payments. Stop doing it because all it's doing is stealing your wealth. Look at how much money could have been back in their pocket or is now going to be back in their pocket rather than spending it and giving it to the banks. Why would you do that? Why would you when you know a different way? Well, guess what? Now you do. Have an awesome day, guys. I will see you next time.